welcome to Armoring and Anecdotes. I'm not at the armoring table, so to compensate, I've got as my fidget tool or fidget spinner, I've got the tightening tool in my hands. I don't know why I have it in my hands. But we are going to do a fencing critique in movies, or movies with fencing. So we're not going to be doing movies with sword fighting in it. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to stick with movies that are trying to depict actual fencing. And so I'm going to try to stray away from maybe period movies like Zorro or Princess Bride, which would be cool to do. So what we're going to try to focus on are just movies that are trying to depict fencing. So you're going to see fencers or scenes that have fencing gear on, fencing masks. They're trying to show an actual bout. And we're going to stray away if they don't have fencing gear on, they're just sword fighting. We're going to stray away from that one. So we'll see how we do. First movie that's up is I loved this movie when I was in high school. It had some great special effects in it for as early in the movie. It's one of the early special CGI movies, or not the whole movie has CGI, but it had some CGI in it, especially the owl at the beginning of the movie. The movie is called Young Sherlock Holmes. I'm trying to remember, I don't think there's any big names that I'm familiar with it, but the movie has Young Sherlock Holmes in it. And the scene is, I believe, the instructor is actually Moriarty, and the person that he's acting or asking to fence with, or to do a demonstration with, is the young Sherlock Holmes. So this is a bit of a period piece, and so the fencing. I wanted to start with this one because it's not quite modern fencing. They're using saber in this one, so there's a salute, a little bit more fancy. But if you notice, they're holding the saber not probably as we would normally do. One too many parry riposts, I would say, in this one. Right there. So you'll see that there's and let's go back, see if we can go back a bit on that one. You find this in a lot of fencing movies, or not fencing movies, you find this a lot in fencing scenes where there's a lot of attacks on one side. There, Sherlock Holmes is just like 3 or 4 attacks, especially in Saber. We're not the Saber Club. You're not going to see a lot of multiple attacks like that. Even with foil, you're not going to see a lot of multiple attacks going in one direction. So a lot of times you'll honestly see attacks that are just kind of, they go, then you go. But let's see a few more in there. The actions are, that wasn't bad there. That one right there. Let's go back. It's the lunges. Those big forward action, recovery, forward action again, especially with a point you're not going to see in Saber. But this last action from the fencing coach, a little dramatic. You see the parry there, and then he tries to imitate. Yeah, I could have cut you. I could have cut your head off. Most of the times, they probably would have just tapped the top of that mask. So, not the best in terms of what fencing looks like realistically. And it's more of a period piece. So that was Sherlock Holmes. And we are going to look at Star Trek. So this one is Jean-Luc Picard on the Enterprise with Guinan, played by Whoopi Goldberg. I believe, yeah, they're using foils here. So the footwork's not bad. Let's go back a little bit and see if we can watch a little bit of that, because it is a quick scene. Let's see. So there's action. It's back and forth. I like that. But again, you see a bit of it where there's an attack by Jean-Luc, and again another attack by Jean-Luc. Ideally, you would want to see immediate parry riposts from the opponent. So let's go back and watch a few of that again. Oh, that was a nice little coupe action from Jean-Luc Picard. Right there. He takes a beat. He pulls back right there, and but again, you see a lot of continuous action. Not bad for foil fencing, but again, you see some of the common tropes that people like to do in fencing in movies. What you see here, they're using, I think because they want to use a little bit more futuristic look to it, they're using saber masks because they're all silver. And you'll also see that their gloves are all metal. Of course, in bouts, fencing here, our gloves will just be all white. The saber gloves definitely will have the additional cup to it because that's the added target. But they're all wireless. She's using a French grip. Jean-Luc, I can see he's using a French grip as well. Actually not that bad for fencing. Okay, there's a movie called I Love You, Man, and it's a very, very short clip. So we won't have to spend a lot of time with it, but it's actually not bad. I've seen some parts. I've never seen this movie, but and the action goes pretty quick. What I do like it, a lot of it goes back and forth. And there's a lot of immediate parry repos. And some of the action isn't all that bad. So you see the first initial action from the left, the parry repos from the right. Left takes it back. Right continues to go forward for one or two more actions than I think that they should. Another parry repos from the left. But then that right there. The behind the back with a crossover forward. I probably wouldn't have done it in that distance. Here he goes, watch it again. Right there. But whoever choreographed this, pretty good. Because there's back and forth motion. Boom. And the right takes that parry repos for that behind the back. And really, if as a referee, I might have called a halt. Maybe not. They never turn the shoulders. But it's not a great distance to do that behind the back motion. Usually, when you see people doing it, it's when the person is trying to cross past them, and I might or I'm getting too close, and they're kind of to my left. If I'm a right-handed fencer, I'll do the behind the back. But you see some back and forth motion here. So it's not that bad in terms of choreographed fencing. There's that parry repos, he takes it back, and the last action, he takes a preen, and if I remember correctly, I believe it's called a Pasada de Soto, if I remember the terminology correct. That is, you see him put his hand down on the ground as he hits that low 8 attack. And there's there's two parry repos, a preen, and then he goes for that low hit. Chances are, as a referee, I might count that as a touch, depending. Trying to remember my rules, but it's actually not bad for choreography. All right, so that was from a movie called I Love You, Man. I've never watched the movie. I'll probably have to watch it sometime. So let's go on to The Parent Trap. We will stop this probably before it gets to the crazy stuff. So they start off not bad, and then it gets progressively worse. We'll stop before it gets progressively worse. So here we meet one of the twins. She's still in the mask right there. And for those of you who don't recognize, that is Janice from Friends. I actually didn't catch that when I first watched this movie a long time ago. But you're about to meet the other twin, and she's not going to see the other twin because she's got her mask on. So they're gearing up for the bout here. There are camps. There's a camp in North Carolina. One of my good friends from college that fenced with me helped coach at the camp. They have fencing at the camp, which is pretty cool. So she meets her twin, puts on the mask, so they don't see each other. The green jacket here, you're just not going to see that anywhere. I don't know if any fencing equipment supply companies that have a green front. They are selling lames with different colors, definitely, but this, I think this is just for show for the movie. You saw them flipping up their weapons. That's pretty cool. Honestly, just pick up the weapon. All right, so here we are. The bout starts. They've got practice weapons, and there's that trope again that I mentioned. It's just constant beat, 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 beat. And if you're in my kids' class, you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. If you're going to take the weapon, go for the attack. If you're taking multiple beats, you're taking one too many. So you see that a lot in fencing movies. It looks cool. It sounds cool. And I mentioned to a lot of kids here, fencing is not what you see in movies. What we do here happens so fast sometimes, and it's hard to watch. But in fencing movies, it's cool. You hear the weapon clang, you hear the weapons hitting each other. It looks cool, sounds cool, but actually not that great for fencing. So in terms of here, yeah, now just, they've got foils, and they're whipping the foils around, and they're ducking, and they're turning around. That's about the extent I'm going to watch that. It degrades from there, but you know, if you're in my fencing class, you know there's no spinning around, or even walking back to your on guard line. I'm asking you not to turn around, and definitely with a point-directed weapon like foil, you are not going to whip around like that. And they are using foils and not sabers, so let's get away from the parent trap there. Next one we're going to is from a movie called The Fallen. I've not seen this movie, never heard of it. Have no idea what it's about. So we've got a fencing scene that's getting ready to start. They're using sabers. Sabers, I think they use a lot in movies because it just looks cooler. It's what people might depict or think of fencing with a clamshell grip. But once again, they're holding the saber not probably the way we would normally hold it. They've got the point directed at them, whereas a saber, usually when they're on guard, the saber is kind of up and down. It creates that wall. Let's see what's going on here. It's like we've got another fencer joining the fray. It's like, I watched you, now I want to fence you. You see this a lot in movies. And they immediately start without saluting. Okay. All right, so they start again. There's a lot of point-directed action, point lines. There we go, and some running, and some flashbacks, I guess. In Saber, you are not going to see crossing over with the feet. They will all be advances and retreats. And somewhere in the background, you've probably seen a guy with a lame on, with just a lame on. Not quite sure why, but you're not going to have the lame on without your jacket. Also, this fencing club, you've got some people hanging out in the back while they're fencing. And that last cut right there, most cuts, they're not going to slice through like that or try to hold it. In Saber, those cuts are just going to go right through. Small hand. There's that kid with the saber, with a foil lame. But saber cuts, they're going to be very, very quick, very, very small. They're not going to cut through like you would do with a cavalry weapon. I'll have to try to find this movie and see what this movie's about, because she's having some flashbacks. Or he's having some flashbacks as well, and now they're all just all over the place, and it looks like the coach is trying to stop them. Again, if you're at the fencing club, if you start going beyond that strip, going left and right, we're going to stop you pretty quickly. All right, so that's having some flashbacks. She falls down, and let's move away from that. Okay, let's go to Die Another Day. James Bond with Pierce Brosnan and Madonna. I have never seen a fencing coach with that getup. I don't know how much protection that would be. They do not make coaching vests like that. If they do, it's probably custom made, but obviously there's going to be any fencing coaches with that. There's a lot of, I think Leon Paul supplied a lot of the fencing equipment here, and they did some customization. But her stuff as a fencing coach, there's a lot of things that's going on over there.
Gorgeous, isn't she?
A lot of things to catch on to. So practicality as a coaching vest, probably not so much. Especially they're doing a lot of epee in that club, so she'd want to get some hand coverage for that one. So we're about to see Pierce Brosnan fence the bad guy here. We're going to fast forward to the bout. And I do remember this, the choreography, up until it degrades to an all-out battle, the choreography is not that bad. They're going epee, and so you will see multiple attacks from one side. Now we're fast forwarding a little bit.
Shall we?
All right, here we go. Mask comes on, and they did make a wager per touch. Do you see wagers at the fencing club for per touch? No. If we do anything like that, it's going to be like, okay, for every touch I make, we're going to do a push-up. But we honestly don't do that. You're not going to see wagers per touch in fencing. So they are fencing epee in this one. Movement is actually pretty good. So you see advances and you see jumps there. So I don't think it's the actual actors that are doing the choreography here. But there's a jump from the right side, on Pierce Brosnan's side. But there's a lot of back and forth motion. Epee will not look like this. There's going to be a lot of bouncing around and waiting. The constant blade action is what's going to look good for movies. So you'll see that a lot in movies. But you see the Leon Paul. I never noticed that before. You see the Leon Paul on the swimming team. But in movies or epee, you're going to see a lot of just kind of bouncing around, waiting, and one quick action. That's typical for epee. A lot of blade work here, back and forth. It looks pretty cool, but it's just kind of more choreography for show. But there's an action here that I see that I really like. Right there. Okay, it's very brief, but as Graves, I think it's the antagonist here, you see a quick counterattack to the wrist right there before he goes back, which is a great epee technique. You know, as you're going back, it's a counterattack to the wrist, but there's a lot of circular motions here. They get together, they push off, and then they touch. They're holding on to that lunge a little bit longer than you'd probably see in fencing. The previous touch, it looked like James Bond just kind of stood there when a touch happened, and that's hard when filming fencing, especially when it's choreographed. For fencers, there's a lot of stuff that's still happening after the touch, and so when things just kind of stop, when I'm doing any kind of commercial filming for fencing here, the hardest part for the kids is to stop immediately after the touch, and that usually doesn't happen. They're constantly moving. And so now they're betting for that diamond. Let's see how the bout goes from here, because it degrades shortly after that. Yeah, the fencing's not that bad there. And then actually, I don't know what Pierce did there, but he hit an arm, he hit his wrist. And honestly, I've never seen any bout that you hit the wrist so hard where he's bleeding, and now they want to go very manly. The jackets are coming off, and they're going to get the broadsword. So let's stop that there. Let's move on to our next movie. It's on Netflix. I don't know if it's a movie or series, but it's called Booksmart. And it's not really featured fencing, but you see fencing in the background. Right there, you see fencing in the background. What's interesting about this is, one, this is a high school. They have the club outside, which is kind of cool. But the left-hand fencer, I don't think, either is a beginner fencer or not a fencer at all. They pick someone up to try to do some fencing. The one on the right side, actually, I don't know who he is, but he does look like he knows some fencing. The movement, the on guard, and sometimes just how they hold their body. When you see movies and they're wearing fencing gear, it looks kind of off, because when someone has their fencing gear on and they're not used to it, they tend to hunch over. I'm not sure why. And you see that with the guy on the left. Fencers, especially the guy on the right, they're just standing straight up. They feel comfortable in their fencing uniform. The other reasons why I see why I think the fencer on the right has some fencing background is they're extending before they attack. They're not doing the real back before they lunge. They've got good extensions. The other thing, and you see it right there, you see him tap his leg before he goes, and that's that's just, it's not a rule or anything, but you see a lot of fencers do that when they're fencing with somebody else and there's no referee. That little tap on the leg says, on guard, ready, fence. That's a signal for both fencers that, hey, we're gonna start now. And then right at the end there, see if I can rewind a little bit, you see the other fencer, as the attack hits, he just kind of runs away. Yeah, let's watch that, here we go. I did a close-up of this video. And then he just runs away. And the attacker on the left, he's just kind of all over the place. They're attacks that are not really trying. So just kind of hallmarks of either a beginner fencer or someone who's never fenced before. But definitely the person on the right, they didn't get someone to choreograph because someone definitely knows what they're doing. They know how to stand in on guard. They know how to extend and lunge. So now we're going to cover by the sword. So it's a universally hated, not hated, that's a big word, but not many fencers like it. It's got Mia Sara in it, Eric Roberts. It was great because it was a movie kind of solely just about kind of revolving around fencing with a story behind it. But in terms of bouts and fencing, it's actually not that bad. I'm not quite sure how many of the actors are actually fencers, but the fencing is not that bad. So in this first scene, we're seeing a training montage, the 80s training montage of this time with fencers. We're going to fast forward a little bit. So they're doing advances. Oh, there we go. Okay, here we go. All right. So here we go. Advances, retreats. There's an esquive right there, but not bad, you know. Looks like they trained for a little bit on that, but the advances and retreats look pretty good. There's a crossover and a very, very high and short flesh. A balestra, so those are good. They're actually wearing fencing shoes, and then now we're dancing and pirouette, so I think they're doing that just to show off for him. Good lunges there, and a remise of the attack, so a good forward on guard remise. Everything else is just kind of dancing. Of course, the required moonwalk for that age, for that time in the 80s. So I think after that was just their warm-up routine, not warm-up routine, but training routine. Let's go look at some bouts here. So they're having a competition. That is a big bout table. Yeah, you can see that right there. That is a huge bout table. I don't know if they do that for pentathlons, but we're never going to have a table that big. They might have it, and then throughout the course of the class, you try to fence as many people as you can, but we don't have bout tables that big. All right, so let's see. That's Eric Roberts right there, brother to Julia Roberts. Let's see. Let's watch this bout here, see what happens. The fencing style looks pretty cool. I don't know if they're using an actual fencing style, but there's a style up north that looks very similar to this. But the bouts look pretty real. They don't feel too choreographed. And you saw he had a sticker on the side of his mask there. A sticker or the big thing that's on the side of the mask. He probably did international events or Olympics. You usually find that on the side of the masks. And there's a preem right there as you try to flesh by. So if it was choreographed, it's well choreographed. So again, I don't know if some of these fencers were actors that taught how to fence, but the lunge there is not that bad. That actually was Mia Sara. So I'm curious if how much practice they gave these fencers, because lunging is not something that comes natural to some people. These are épée bouts. The other thing I like about this is immediately you see the bouncing. That is very stereotypical for épée fencers. A circle six and a flesh. He had some body contact there, which is allowed in épée. You don't usually try to make body contact. In foil, that would be immediately a yellow card. Good flesh there, and he's able to get him with a preem. Nice. You can't see the boxes. So false attack, and then the fencer on the left tries to flesh. He was able to catch him with a preem. So it's actually not bad for fencing. A lot of flesh attacks here. Normally, if you've fenced in competitions with us before, you're going to see 5 to 6 fencer pools, then you'll break out into elimination rounds. So we're never going to do a pool that big. Not quite sure what they're doing. Maybe they're just going for total number of wins. But let's see. Let's fast forward to a couple other bouts here. Okay, the bout. I think this is the finals with. No, it's not finals. There's a confrontation between the two coaches before they continue the bouts. But I think since the 5 touches is Mia Sara versus her antagonist / love interest in this show. So let's see how this bout goes. Again, I'm not quite sure if Mia Sara fenced. I'm not sure if he fenced, but they both look good as fencers on camera. I could tell a little bit of delay on that lunge from Mia Sara. But what did he do? I don't remember. Let's see. We've gone back a little too far. There we go. On that lunge, you felt that body from Mia Sara just kind of draw back a little bit rather than just going straight forward. But otherwise, not a bad lunge. It's pretty good. Trying to remember what the antagonist did. She attacks. Oh, he just does a parry repost. Doesn't need a parry repost, but I think for the sake of the movie, they like blade action and sound. So rather than a counterattack, which is probably what they would have done there, she misses her attack and then he attacks afterwards with pretty good distance. But I said the previous attack, he probably would have just did a counterattack. Let's see what happens here. He attacks with the flesh. She counterattacks with a bit of an escape. Let's watch that again. And manages a double touch. So in terms of making it look like fencing, this is actually pretty close. The movie itself, it's not a great movie. But the fencing, now that I'm watching it again, is actually not that bad. Here we go. We'll watch the flesh, and she esquives for a simultaneous attack. Double touch, the score is now 3-1. I think he's upset because he assumed he was going to make a 5-0 on her. And then some coaching. He says, you know your weakness, use it against you. And she's like, oh, okay, I think I know what you mean. And that's not too far from what I say in bouts. You know, fencers have to realize what they're good at and what they're not good at, and use everything that they can on the strip. So this score is 3-1, and he fleshes, and she does a pasada del soto, or an esquive down while putting her hand on the ground. Most of the time you want to avoid now putting your hand on the ground. It's going to cause a halt from the referee. In previous, many years ago, it would probably be a yellow card. Now it'll just call a halt. So now the score for this one is 3-2. And I think she's going to make one more score, which will cause a confrontation between the coaches. Oh no, she didn't score. He actually runs her over. So I mentioned before, blade contact in epee is allowed, probably not a yellow card. But if you really jostle the opponent, that will cause the yellow card. So jostling will cause the yellow card. If it is perceived to be what do you call it? A intentional contact, then the referee will give you a yellow card. So if you're doing it intentionally, then it'll be a yellow card. Okay? So let's go on to the next movie. Let's go on to The Fencer. The Fencer is an Estonian movie. It came out a couple years ago. Again, one of my favorite movies right now in terms of fencing. It's historical a little bit. He came to this competition, and actually they weren't prepared for the electric portion of the competition. They had to borrow equipment. But this is foil. This is based on a true story. I don't know how true it is, or they took some liberties for the story. But we're going to see the end of the movie here, or near the end of the movie, some of the final bouts. His team is absolutely new. He started teaching at a school and opened a fencing club. He's not sure what to do. He just said, I think the coach said, just do what the other person did. They're testing weight there. If you haven't done a competition with us before, testing weight is making sure that the button at the end of the tip is not too light. So you don't want hits that barely hit the fencer and the light goes off. It has to have a certain amount of pressure to be able to push down. Otherwise you're cheating. So that's what the little weight that you see on there. So if you've done competitions, especially sanctioned competitions with us, we'll do a weight test with the coaches between every bout. So I think if I remember correctly, he was one of his better students. But you can see this is his first competition. He's apprehensive. You see that a lot in fencers. They can be very good in class, and their first competition is like a deer in headlights. They're not quite sure what to do. They're not sure about themselves. We just ask fencers to just do what you're trained to do. Do what we've worked on. And that time he just did a beat lunge. He leaned back a little bit on it, I felt, but otherwise it's not, not a bad attack. There's an attack there. He failed to parry. Or I can't say, okay, we're at 4-3. Missed a couple touches there. There's a lot of cuts here that they're doing, which is pretty cool because, again, if the actors are not fencers and they haven't trained extensively on it, it's very hard to make it look like fencing, especially for people that know what it looks like. Otherwise, you get stuff like Parent Trap. But this one, they're doing a lot of cuts. And so you're seeing some of the action in that very particular angle. So it doesn't look that bad from a fencer or a coach's point of view. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, foil. This is foil. We've seen saber. We've seen epee. This is foil. There's a lot of give and take. An attack from the left and that they missed, and a good defense using distance. The opponent missed, and she attacked immediately. There's no hesitation there. No extraneous weapon beating and whacking around. So in terms of the choreography for the touches, not that bad. He does a preem on the last one. Let's watch that again. Attack, yeah, another preem. We've been seeing a lot of preems. Maybe it just looks cool on movies, but they tend to do that a lot. Looks like this is a team competition, which is why you see the teammates coming out. So it's not just their teammates off to the side. This is a team competition. So 3 fencers versus another 3 fencers with a backup, just in case someone gets hurt. So right now it looks like the opposing team is, I think, up by a bout, or they might be tied. I'm not quite sure. And this bout, you also see a raised strip. You see that sometimes. Usually the strips might have a little bit more runoff on the side. We've fenced on raised strips before. It's tough because like if you step off or you put 1 foot half on, half off, you're going to twist your ankle. So you don't see a whole lot of raised strips anymore. You might see them in finals competitions, but the strips are pretty wide, so you've got a lot of leeway on the left and right, and also towards the back. But you see on this one, she lunged and landed wrong, hurt the knee. So at this point, he can't continue. Usually in a bout, if you get hurt, you have 10 minutes to try to recuperate. If within 10 minutes time, you're able to continue fencing, continue fencing. But if you're absolutely hurt, you cannot continue, then you do forfeit that bout. And you are done for the rest of the competition. You can't come back a little bit later on. I've been in bouts before where I've gotten cramps, and I've used up my whole 10 minutes, and I'm still cramping up at the end of 10 minutes. And I don't want to forfeit the bout. So I will fence with a cramp in my leg. Not the best fencing, and I don't think I won it either. But I continued anyway. So sometimes, yeah, you do get hurt and you keep on going. But if you really hurt, then you can't continue. It has happened to some of our fencers before. They just have to forfeit the rest of the bout. So they've replaced the fencer with this little girl. Notice her opponent is much taller than her. And I think the girl is up with time running out. So what the coach told her to do is just run the time. She just has to keep her score, and the team automatically wins. In this one, you see that she went over the line and they had to go back forward. These are older rules. The warning strip at the end of the strip, in older fencing, once you cross the warning strip, you will go back forward to the next line. And that's the only time you can do it. So he scores a touch on this one. It's really difficult for her. She is really, really short, really, really tall. And that will happen. I've fenced people much, much taller than me. It is tough to hit them. You have to get pretty close. I have to use a lot of priority rules to try to get near them. But it's tough when you're fencing someone a lot taller. It can be done though. So we'll watch if there's a final touch here. She's now quite worried because it's 4-4. Time is running out. Time did run out. Okay, I forgot about that. Time did run out. So when time runs out, they flip a coin. In this case, he is using a pen. Whichever way the pen is pointing to, that fencer will get priority. What that means is they will fence for 1 more minute. The fencer, if there is no scores touch within the next minute, then the fencer who won the coin toss or the pen or priority automatically wins. So you saw here that the tall guy won the priority. So yes, okay, great. Now she can't get to me. I think I won this bout. All right. So they're going to fence for another minute. She's worried. She doesn't think she's going to be able to win this. She's too short. But here we go. So they start the bout. She's got a minute left. And especially in his case, where he's a much, much taller fencer and you have priority, a lot of times they'll just go on defense. They're not going to take the risk of going forward sometimes. Fencers have to remember there's 2 ways. You can go defense, you can go on offense. He's not really, it doesn't look like he's trying too hard on offense. He doesn't want to make a mistake. And she's keeping up the bout. And they've got about 20 seconds left in the bout. He's not really trying too hard. She's already gone over the end of the strip, so she's making sure she's not going over that time. So now she's pushing forward. Okay, you got a determination shot. Now she's pushing forward. A lot of false attacks. Most of our fencers don't do it now. She's taking some beats, but she's keeping the priority on that side, and she finishes with a flesh. There we go. Let's try it. Let's watch that again. So there's a determination look. She pushes forward. A lot of false attacks. And she should finish with a flesh. And so she's able to use a flesh to cover the ground that she can't normally cover with just a lunge because she's shorter than the other guy. So it's a good tactical move. You'll see a lot of short fencers. You end up using a flesh to try to hit the target. So she scored within time, touch to her, and so she wins the bout. I really hope you enjoyed that. So if you get a chance to watch those movies, put it in your repertoire as a fencer to say, yeah, I watch those movies. Even the bad ones, I watch the movies. Again, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm sorry we didn't have any armoring this time. We just finished putting together a bunch of weapons, but you've seen me put together weapons before. Unfortunately, a lot of our weapons have not gone down over the past couple of weeks. So, stay healthy and safe, try fencing, and we dare you not to love it.